We got another one. The newest Miami Hurricanes verbal commit is a flip from the 407 to the 305. Justin J.J. Edwards, welcome to the U.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Sunday. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. On this loaded Locked On Canes, closing up today, Sunday, big fourth weekend of official visits at the University of Miami. Some interesting things we're hearing, including a certain prospect who can't get enough of South Florida, keeps coming back week after week after week. We'll talk about the official and updated recruiting rankings for Miami after landing their newest verbal commit. And that newest verbal commit, late afternoon on Saturday, decided to make his pledge, flip his pledge, I should say, from the Rutgers Scarlet Knights to the Miami Hurricanes. The Hurricanes land their second linebacker of this cycle, 14th overall verbal commit, and this one comes from three-star linebacker Justin J.J. Edwards. J.J. is a three-star prospect, but we'll talk about why we think he's going to rise a little higher on that board. 6'2", 205 pounds. He's out of a powerhouse program in the Sunshine State, Edgewater High School in Orlando, Florida. Again, flips from Rutgers to Miami. And I know, Mario Cristobal's pretty chummy with Greg Schiano and, of course, Corey Heatherman, Miami's linebacker coach, worked for Schiano, which is a little ironic. So I don't know if there's any beef from her. I'm trying to manufacture the beef. For all I know, everything's cool there. But Miami flips this player from Rutgers. I think the opportunity to stay a lot closer to home probably had something to do with that for J.J. Edwards. All right, so I think we've got to start on the measurables and what really makes this such an exciting prospect. And I can't emphasize this enough. The things that I'm hearing coming out of Coral Gables, in fact, they're screaming this so loudly from Coral Gables. I'm in Milan, Italy right now, and I'm getting text messages about the excitement that Miami staff has in J.J. Edwards. His measurables jump off the chart, his testing numbers as well. This young man has an 80-inch wingspan. He runs a 4.5 40-yard dash, 4.2 shuttle. He possesses a 33-inch vert, a 9-foot 6-inch broad jump, which I'm told is like top 2% of testing for all high school players. And in terms of what you're going to get actually on the field from Justin J.J. Edwards, let's talk about what he did in his previous season at Edgewater, his junior season of high school. He recorded 52 tackles, 15 TFL, 10 sacks. It's a lot of sacks in one season, 3 forced fumbles, and 2 pass breakups. And by the way, that was in 9 games. So Edwards recorded 10 sacks in 9 games for those who are keeping score. And that's a big, really excellent football program in Central Florida. Edgewater High School, cannot emphasize that enough either. This player is renowned for his 3-down value at the linebacker position. He's a big fan of Miami's system and Miami's defense. He feels that the D that Corey Heatherman runs is perfect for him. That was obviously a big part of his commitment. And remember, Corey Heatherman is not only Miami's defensive coordinator, but Miami's linebackers coach. So he's got his fingerprints directly on the recruitment of J.J. Edwards. Very instinctive, elite athletic ability for his position. Physical in the running game, can also cover smaller, faster skill receivers in space, which is really important. Again, they feel his stock is going to rise throughout his senior year of high school. And if you look at those measurables, I mean, oftentimes when you're having conversations about college players, heading towards the NFL, when players go to the combine and the measurables are elite, they tend to kind of rise up the draft boards. I think with J.J. Edwards' testing numbers being so impressive and his physical attributes being so impressive, in addition to what he's actually doing on the field, you can hope and expect that he's going to kind of improve from that 3-star prospect at the moment to a 4-star by the time his senior season is over in high school. So for J.J. Edwards, the official visit for him, he was not one of the visitors this weekend, and we're definitely going to be on commit watch for a few of these that are just ending their official visits today. Edwards visited the previous weekend. He visited last weekend, and he's really high on Miami's coaching staff. He's got a good bond with Corey Heatherman, who's going to be his coordinator and his position coach. And he also believes in the Miami culture under Mario Cristobal. And, you know, something we're going to talk about a lot more throughout this episode is that Miami really does a nice job on the official visits, especially, but also on unofficial visits of, you know, really connecting with families of players and also, you know, making things really hospitable for the parents and the siblings that come along. So, you know, I mentioned J.J. Edwards becomes the 14th overall committed player, the second linebacker committed. He joins Jordan Campbell, 4-star linebacker. Remember, for Campbell, this was someone we were, you know, kind of worried. He was taking visits to other places. A couple of weeks ago, Campbell shut down his recruitment and he reaffirmed his commitment to the University of Miami. So Campbell is not going anywhere. And now you add J.J. Edwards to that mix, and maybe Miami can add a couple more linebacker prospects before this is all done. So when we come back, let's discuss where Miami now ranks with class of 2026 recruiting. They're moving on up, and we expect now in late June, you know, we're hearing this teased by Miami staff as well. I think the next couple of weeks here, as you hit, you know, early July is when a lot of players have their commitment date set. I mean, not even early July. We're a couple days away from Israel Briggs, 4-star tight end, who Miami seems to be trending for. He's going to make his commitment on June 24th, which is this Tuesday. A bunch of players have early July, July 4th, July 5th commitment dates locked in. So I think this is going to be a busy period coming up for Miami, but we'll talk about where they stand right now in recruiting, and we'll talk about some other intel coming out of official visits. So, folks, you don't want to go anywhere. Justin Edwards is a Cane. I'm always a Cane. I'm representing Miami in Italy. You want to keep it locked right here? We're only getting started on this brand new episode. Folks, we are only getting started with FanDuel. No matter where I am, I'm always enjoying FanDuel, and summer sports are in full swing. Guys, I'm getting action on the Club World Cup, on UFC fights, Major League Baseball, of course. It's all going down under the lights, the golf, and on the green. High-stakes soccer action, all of it. FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? Because with FanDuel, you can get in the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Guys, I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and it makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride live into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you're an everydayer, you want to take your everydayer experience to the next level, sign up and become a Locked On Canes insider. I include the link in the show description below. When you sign up, you get text messages directly from my phone to yours with breaking news, recruiting scoops. You know, we drop the Donno ball predictions in there from time to time, one-on-one questions and answers. Try it free for 14 days. And if you like it, you can opt in for $4.99 a month. Click and become a Locked On Canes insider below. All right, so with the addition of linebacker Justin Edwards, Orlando Edgewater, per the 24/7 Sports composite rankings, Miami now has the 8th ranked recruiting class in the country. Per the On3 Sports industry recruiting rankings, very similar. Miami has the 9th rated class there. So in the two major services, Miami is trending inside the top 10 with 14 verbal commits. And so you've got, you know, probably around half or just a little bit more than half of your recruiting class, because we expect Miami to be somewhere in maybe the 25 to 26 total prospects range once it's all said and done. So here's what let's talk about who Miami is behind on those rankings. If you go by the 24/7 composite, USC with 30 commits. It's not even July yet, and USC has more commits right now than Miami is likely to have at the end of the cycle. They're taking a ton of commitments right now, USC. So they're number one, Texas A&M at number two, Notre Dame third, Ohio State fourth, UGA, Georgia rounding out that top five. Hopefully within the next, days and weeks, Miami can beat Georgia for Brett Kolejay, Miami's top remaining offensive line target. And hopefully we can beat Georgia for Derek Cooper, 5-star running back. And maybe Miami could even jump in front of Georgia if they win a couple of those recruiting battles. Clemson at number 6. That's another one you'd like to jump in front of because, for the past, I think 3 cycles in a row, if I'm not mistaken, Miami's had the top recruiting class in the ACC. So you'd like to make that 4 straight. Clemson at 6, Penn State at 7. Then you've got Miami at 8, UCLA 9, Illinois rounds out the top 10. For state of Florida, University of Florida has been trending a lot recently. They're up to number 13 at 24/7, and Florida State is 22nd. On the On3 industry rankings, USC at number 1, A&M second, Notre Dame third, LSU fourth. LSU is ranked significantly higher by On3 than 24/7 for whatever reason. Ohio State fifth, Georgia 6, Oregon 7, Clemson 8, Miami 9, Alabama rounds out the top 10, Florida 13th, and Florida State 15th. So they have Florida State significantly higher than 24/7 does. So that's what we're looking at. Let's look at the Miami verbal commitments so far, who Miami has landed now that we're up to 14 and where they rank. Jackson Cantwell, obviously top player in the class, is Miami's top verbal commitment so far, the 5-star offensive tackle. Jordan Campbell, we mentioned him. The other linebacker that Miami has landed is their second highest rated commit who shut down his recruitment, thankfully. Camden Portis, son of Clinton, Miami legacy, at third as a 4-star prospect. Jalen Seatbelt Waters, cornerback out of Armwood. Then Joel Irvin, offensive tackle out of Fort Myers. Ben Congdon, offensive tackle out of Tuscarawas Valley in Ohio. Darion Coleman, Miami's quarterback. Justin Edwards at linebacker, who Miami just landed. Javon Mallerie, we'll circle back to him because he just had his official visit to Miami, who is verbally committed, but others are pressing for him. The 3-star running back out of West Boca. Then you've got Jontavius Wyman, the cornerback Miami flipped from Georgia a while back. Cannon Pickett, offensive lineman. Reese Woodrow, offensive lineman. J.J. Sparks, interior offensive lineman. Tyson Bacon, defensive lineman. So those are Miami's 14 verbal commits so far. Following the recruitment of Javon Mallerie has been interesting. He's been committed to Miami for several months out of West Boca. The Alabama Crimson Tide have been pushing for him. Mallory just had his official visit in Coral Gables, and he made some comments where we'll read them to you here. He reaffirms his Miami commitment, but he admits that the Crimson Tide are still pressing. So I don't know if I can sit here and say that we're like 100% solid that Mallory is going to stick in the class. He is still saying all the right things, but there's still that footnote that Alabama is still working on trying to flip him from Miami's class. I will say that no matter what happens with Mallory, and I'd like to keep him in this recruiting class, but no matter what happens there, I feel pretty confident that Miami's going to land at least 2 out of the 3 of Mallory, Jay Lamar, who visited a couple of weeks ago, the 4-star running back from Colquitt County, Georgia, where Miami has a couple of other players on their roster from that school, and Derek Cooper, who Miami has been probably trending out in front for, but he's one of the top prospects in America. A lot of other schools, including UGA, that are really pushing for him. But I feel pretty confident that Miami's going to land at least 2 out of those 3. And I think there is a scenario where they could go 3 for 3 there. I know it'd be weird to take 3 running backs in the class, but I think this is kind of a unique year. Miami only took 1 last year with Gerard Pringle. So it's not impossible it plays out that way. So Javon Mallerie told the major recruiting sites after his visit this weekend, so he's just leaving the U. He says, "I'm still committed to Miami," he said. Nothing has changed my mind to decommit or flip. I'm 100% committed, he says. It's just the love and care that they show for me and my family, the things we've been through these last 400 days. That's how long he's been committed. The love and connection with the coaching staff means a lot. Now, they write at On3 Sports, with that said, Mallory says he remains in contact with Alabama coaches and that, quote, they are coming at me very hard. He says he hears from them daily as well. They show their best. They want to impress me and my family, but I still love where I'm at right now, Mallory said. So, again, it's like you hear that? I don't know what to make of it because, again, like the young man said, he's 100% committed to Miami, and we hope that's the case. But he does admit Bama is still coming at him hard. We remember, was it last cycle, Bama was able to flip Kevin Riley, another running back from our class, but that was a little bit different because Riley was an Alabama native, whereas Mallory is a South Florida kid in Boca, so the shoe's kind of on the other foot there. So, I hope he stays locked in. And again, if I take him at his word, he says he's 100% committed to the U, and I appreciate that. All right, so a player that we feel pretty good about Miami landing, skill position player, pass catcher, has now come to town, and he's not a local. He's been in South Florida 2 weekends in a row. Is Miami going to lock up a verbal commitment from Tyron Evans? You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. For your next listen, make sure you check out the portal. Our very good friend Brian Smith does an awesome job covering all the stuff that really steals headlines this time of year. NIL headlines, Miami's always relevant with that kind of stuff. We talked yesterday on a special episode about Wisconsin suing Miami and all the contradictions with their lawsuit. Brian Smith discusses all of that, also recruiting, transfer portal. You want to check out the Portal podcast, part of the Locked On family of podcasts, free wherever you get your pods and free on YouTube. All right, so this is a positive update. Wide receiver Tyron Evans, 6'3.5", 200-pound wideout, recently earned a 4th star from On3 Sports. He's out of Huff High School in North Carolina. He just returned to Miami for an unofficial visit 1 week after his official visit. And this is a player who, a little less than a week ago, he was verbally committed to the Tennessee Volunteers. He actually visited Miami officially, 2 weekends ago, while he was still committed to the Vols. A few days after that, decommitted from Tennessee, and then made a follow-up unofficial trip to the U. Folks, I don't know how to say it in any plain and simple terms. You got to like where Miami stands here for Tyron Evans. That this player seems to be completely focused on the University of Miami, and I think the feeling is mutual. I think Evans is a player that Miami really likes. He's listed, again, as I mentioned, 6'3.5", but apparently when he and Calvin Russell, who were listed at 6'5", who is listed at 6'5", they were on the same official visit weekend. I heard that Evans looked every bit as tall as Russell, so it's probably a little. Usually you generously list high school players in terms of height, and maybe they're not generous enough with Tyron Evans. And obviously Calvin Russell is another player we really hope to land. The trend there has been probably more in LSU's favor, but he's going to be announcing on July 5th, which is his birthday. Maybe from Tyron Evans, we get an announcement even before that, because he's a strong candidate. Evans, a very strong candidate to be Miami's next verbal commitment after Justin Edwards. And I've basically had my antenna out even on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean for this very long European journey that I'm on. By the way, I'm going to be back home in the Sunshine State in about 18 days. So July 10th is when I make my triumphant return stateside. But even from out here, whether I've been in Greece or Italy or France for a little while, I keep hearing these last couple of days that I think the next 2 weeks or so is going to be really busy when it comes to Miami making some moves with some verbal commitments. So a class that's at 14 right now is probably going to grow pretty quickly at this point. And last thing on Tyron Evans, who, again, visits Miami 2 weekends in a row. And it's not like this is a guy from Dade or Broward County. You're talking about a North Carolina kid, officially visits Miami, then makes an unofficial follow-up the following week. He has multiple crystal balls and RPM predictions in Miami's favor. Steve Wiltfong, for example, from On3, Gabby Urrutia from 24/7 has forecasted him to land with the U. So we feel pretty good about that player ending up being a Miami Hurricane. Another player that we're getting some really good feedback on, who's just finishing his Miami visit today, is 4-star edge rusher Ashari Charles out of Venice, Florida. 6'2", 235-pound, blue chipper, 4-star player. He told Canesport.com that he felt he could definitely see himself at the U. Is really being recruited hard by Jason Taylor, who's played a major role in that. He said the visit went really good. The vibe has always been Miami needs me, that they want me to play for them. I love it here, he said. You've also got Florida, FSU, Mizzou, very much in the mix for him. But he says the message he gets from Miami coaches, according to Canesport, is they want him to come home, that Miami should be home for him. We talked about how hospitable Miami is for the families. He says he took his visit, his OV, with his entire family. He loves the schemes of Corey Heatherman. Says, quote, they play vertical, they don't have to think too much, and they like to set up one-on-ones for their best pass rushers, he said. His host on the visit, by the way, was Booker Pickett, which is a pretty good host to have. I feel good about them, he said. I'm glad to be here, blessed to be here. I definitely could see myself playing as a Miami Hurricane. So that's a player Miami is positively trending for. Folks, we expect to be pretty busy for the next several days here. And, if you want to ask questions for a future episode, because we'll do some Q&A coming up this week, you can drop some in the comments below. Ask us anything, recruiting, expectations for this coming season. You can even throw in some basketball, because I know they're going to be starting doing some workouts. I think they actually did start doing off-season workouts recently. And football and basketball are overlapping, right? Because Jason Lopez, J-Rock, wide receiver who's visiting Miami, finishing up his visit today. He wants to play both basketball and football at Miami. In fact, Lopez has officially received a basketball offer. Jay Lucas, Miami's hoops coach, has offered him for the hoops team. He already, of course, has a long-standing offer to play football here, and same deal for Calvin Russell. If Russell, does ultimately decide to be a Cane, he can play on both the football team and the basketball team. So there's a lot of overlap between football and basketball. Make sure you smash the like button and subscribe to Locked On Canes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Subscribe on YouTube. And we'll talk to you guys again next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.